Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me. How to survive a nuclear explosion. Yes, you can survive this. Of course, that does depend how far you are from the point of detonation. It begins with a flash brighter than the sun. Don't look at the blast itself, as a fireball it creates could actually blind you. Today, lacking any meaningful civil defense program, millions of American families continue to be at risk and could perish needlessly for lack of essential knowledge that used to be taught at the grade school level. The public at large, businesses, and all our children's schools urgently need to be instructed in civil defense basics again, like how most can save themselves by immediately employing the duck and cover tactic, rather than just allowing an impulsive rush to the nearest window to see what that bright flash was across town, just in time to be shredded by the glass imploding inward from that delayed shockwave blast. Most also don't know, even when caught in the open, just lying flat reduces about eightfold the chances of being hit by debris from that brief 3-second tornado strength shockwave blast that, like lightning and thunder, could be delayed, arriving anywhere from a couple of seconds to 2 minutes after the initial flash. Remember the February 2013 Chelyabinsk, Russia meteor airburst? 1,500 people were injured, most from the delayed shock wave exploding inward the window glass. They were anxiously scanning the winter sky, though trying to see where the bright flash was earlier. A fourth grade teacher in Chelyabinsk was hailed a hero after saving 44 children from imploding window glass cuts. Despite not knowing the origin of the intense flash of light, the teacher thought it prudent to take precautionary measures by ordering her students to stay away from the room's windows and perform a duck and cover maneuver. The teacher, who remained standing, was seriously lacerated when the blast arrived and window glass severed a tendon in one of her arms. However, none of her students, whom she ordered to hide under their desks, suffered cuts. Trees, fences, and people immediately catch fire. Outside, cars, brick walls can act as a shield from the blast. If possible, get indoors as quickly as possible. If you're stuck outside, lay face down, cover the exposed area, and protect your nose and mouth with a cloth. If you want to be prepared before a nuclear attack hits, you can create an emergency kit that includes items like flashlight, batteries, a small battery-powered radio, water, and non-perishable food to store, and medical supplies. Make an emergency plan with your loved ones so that you know what to do in such a situation. And ask officials in your area where the nearest fallout shelter is in case of an emergency. You should also scope out where to take shelter in places you frequent often, like your school, office, and home. And look for structures made of brick or concrete, with basements or windowless areas in the center of floors, spots without easy access to the outside environment. Once inside, try to get as far away from windows or doors as possible, so that there are many levels separating you from the blast as possible. The taller the building and more brick, concrete, and soil between you and the radiation, the better. Close doors and turn off ventilation systems to prevent radiation from seeping in. You stumble to your lopsided front door and look out on the burning ruin of your neighborhood. The deadly radiation fallout is on its way. Should you stay in your wobbly house or run across town to the public library to shelter in its basement? A new mathematical model may have the answer. The model is the brainchild of Michael Dillon, an atmospheric scientist at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California. The official U.S. government advice is to take shelter in the nearest and most protective building. For most people, that would be the basement of their home. But Dillon says out in California, there are just not that many basements offering little protection from fallout. Here we have an image of buildings. The higher the number, the better the protection. For those people, the official recommendation suggests early transit to find better shelter. Ideally, one with thick layers of concrete, 6 inches at least, over your head, and plenty of food and water. But if you spend too much time outside in the fallout, you're toast. He focused on a low-yield nuclear detonation like those used to destroy Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The world's nuclear arsenal has grown far more powerful. Today, warheads can inflict thousands of times more damage. But security experts believe that low-yield bombs are the kinds most likely to be used by terrorists. The longer you stay outside, the higher your radiation dose. But the environmental radiation intensity also decreases over time. So your total dose is a function of when you step outside, your distance from the detonation, how long you run before you reach better shelter, and how much shielding you get from the local environment while you're out there. Dylan simplified the calculation by assuming that you are totally exposed while running to a safer shelter. But he also ignored complexities such as limited shelter capacities. In the end, the math boiled down to a single critical number: the ratio of the time you spend hunkering down in your first shelter to the time you spend moving to the higher quality shelter. Then Dylan worked out what would happen with a variety of shelter options and transit times. The results surprised him. For low-yield nuclear detonations, you can do far better than just sheltering in place. But you'll need to watch and have good knowledge of your surroundings. If your current shelter is poor and higher quality shelter is less than 5 minutes away, the model suggests that you should run there as soon as you can. Once in your shelter, take off your clothing, shower. This will remove about 90% of radiation. Avoid scrubbing or scratching the skin, and don't use conditioner, only shampoo or soap, as it could bind to the radiation. Then place your contaminated clothes in a plastic bag, seal it, and keep it far away from other people. Plan to stay in your shelter for 2 weeks before you can go outside. If you have a poor shelter, but higher quality shelter is available further away, you should get to that higher quality shelter no later than 30 minutes after detonation. Depending on the size of the city, if everyone follows this advice, it could save between 10,000 and 100,000 lives. Dylan reported online at the Proceeding of Royal Society A. This was back in 2014. How to avoid fallout radiation. Fallout is a mess of bomb material, soil, and debris that is vaporized, made radioactive, and sprinkled as dust and ash across the landscape by prevailing winds. In New York, for example, a fallout zone would spread eastward. Poor shelters, which include about 20% of houses, are constructed of lightweight materials and lack basements. The best shelters are thick brick or concrete and lack windows, like a bomb shelter. Hiding in a sub-basement of a brick 5-story apartment building, for example, should expose you to just 1/200th of the amount of fallout radiation outside. For the most part, everyone caught in the fallout within the first 48 to 72 hours will die. Those who survive the blast, which is lethal up to 10 miles from ground zero, will survive the dangers of fallout if they are in an underground bomb shelter. Things that you'll need: ample masks to block the radiation, air filtration to prevent inhaling or ingesting radioactive material, water and food for several weeks, medical supplies, radiation meters, energy source, both batteries and burnable fuel, radio for communications, battery operated, simple waste disposal, a way to wash off radioactive material. Since radiation can't make turns, use 90-degree turns at doorways and air ducts. And what about electromagnetic pulses? In addition to other effects, a nuclear weapon detonated in or above the Earth's atmosphere can create an electromagnetic pulse, EMP, a high-density electrical field. An EMP acts like a stroke of lightning, but is stronger, faster, and shorter. An EMP can seriously damage electronic devices connected to power sources or antennas. This includes communication systems, computers, electrical appliances, and automobile or aircraft ignition systems. The damage could range from a minor interruption to actual burnout of components. Most electronic equipment within 1,000 miles of a high-altitude nuclear detonation could be affected. Battery-powered radios with short antennas generally would not be affected. Although an EMP is unlikely to harm most people, it could harm those with pacemakers or other implanted electronic devices. And depending on the range of the damage, we could very well be put back to the horse and carriage era. Well, put your thoughts and comments down below. Bookmark my site. I'll keep you up to date. Please stay safe. And I'll talk to you later. God bless you. Bye.